Hello gentlemen and gentle ladies, my name is Sir Stanger, and today we're going to be talking about a topic that I think is a little bit dumb, but something I think we need to talk about nonetheless. I think it's come to prominence a lot more since the Pyro update is being real hyped to get released, and it's something that I definitely think we need to talk about now. Now what I'm talking about, of course, is whether or not Team Fortress 2 is a casual or competitive game, or if it leans in one way or the other, and I know there's a lot of gray area within there, so I'm hopefully trying to clear some of that up today, maybe make things a little bit easier to see. And this is one of those arguments that I really see posted just about everywhere, and everyone seems to have a slightly differing opinion on it, so obviously whatever I'm going to say is just my opinion. You have every right to disagree if you'd like, but I've seen a lot of people say that, you know, TF2 is a casual game, stop trying so hard in every game that you go to, there's no point, this is a extremely relaxed and laid-back game, and I've seen other people who are saying exactly the opposite. You know, this game has a really high skill ceiling, and it deserves to be traversed and learned and taught from generation to generation, and, you know, for everyone to gradually get better at it and constantly be trying to improve. Honestly, both sides have pretty valid arguments, and it can be a little bit hard. There's a lot of gray area when it comes to this, and as to what exactly is the nature of Team Fortress 2. Is it a more competitive game? Is it a more casual game? A lot of people don't seem to know. I mean, on one side of the spectrum, we have, you know, straight-up professional Team Fortress 2 players who go to LANs and compete for awards and trophies and have, you know, thousands of hours in the game. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have, you know, all of the new players, and we have the friendlies who throw out sandwiches during games, and the people who taunt and conga all game. These are completely different sides of the exact same coin, and it's a bit confusing, I'll admit. Team Fortress 2 just has so much variety in what it is that you can do. Community servers, public servers, they all together encompass so many different ways you can possibly play the game Team Fortress 2 that the game has taken on a sort of role that not many other games can claim, and it almost has a role all of its own. Team Fortress 2 has been described in the past as a legacy game, which is something I can totally agree with. A game that's a bit timeless and that should kind of survive forever, even with only a small player base. It's kind of like Quake and World of Warcraft in that nature, and that it just has such an avid fan base that's just been around for so long that it's going to be really hard for TF2 to die off completely. But something else that I would also call Team Fortress 2 is a community game, because a large part of what goes into the game is really kind of dictated by the community, and the game's overall survival right now is just being held up by the loving and passionate community behind it. Now, I know what you're thinking. Sir Stanger, what does this have to do with the topic? Honestly, just about everything, and I'll tell you why. Now, overall, I'd say that the competitive side of Team Fortress 2 makes up the minority, I would say. And the reason I'll say that is because I think that the minority of players actually partakes in some sort of competitive league or competitive game, or takes the game with any sort of seriousness whatsoever. This doesn't mean that the majority of players are out there dancing the conga every single game and throwing sandwiches to their nearest enemy, but it does mean that we don't have all that many people actually actively partaking in the competitive TF2 scene. This puts the game in a really difficult position, because balancing weapons towards the lower portion of the community, as in the portion of the community that doesn't take competitive very seriously, is always a bit of a risky move, because you will end up with weapons that in the right hands are pretty overpowered. But if you balance towards the upper end, you will also end up with people on the lower end of the community kind of unable to use certain weapons because they take more skill than they're able to give. And like it or not, Team Fortress 2 has a huge skill ceiling. If you don't take this game seriously, then you do need to get it through your thick skull that it takes a lot of practice to master everything in Team Fortress 2. So whether or not you want to take this game seriously, there are people that do and that want to get good at those skills. So that's a fact that I think should be respected. And these are just some of the basic issues kind of plaguing the weapon balance within the game right now, because we have some weapons that I would say are definitely geared more towards competitive play, and especially with the last patch note suggestions kind of leaning more towards competitive play, it definitely seems as though the Team Fortress 2 developers are looking to maybe make this a bit more of a competitively oriented game, which the majority of the community might not be so in favor of. A word we see thrown around the Team Fortress 2 community a bit too much, I'd say, these days is the word tryhard. This word is almost used as a sort of swear by a lot of more casual players in the game to describe people who are taking the game a bit more seriously and maybe trying their best to win or some other nature. I do think that this word has been misconstrued a little bit though and given multiple meanings, so I want to kind of clear up what I'm defining as tryhard right now and what I'm not. A tryhard, by my definition, would just be somebody who tries their hardest to win at any given game mode that they're currently playing. So they're putting all of their effort in to try and win that particular game. I personally feel that people have been using the word tryhard to describe more toxic players in the game recently, rather than people who are just doing their best to try and win the game. Although I know that there are some people who are using it for that purpose also. And toxic players overall is something I think most of us can agree are just unacceptable within the game. By no means am I ever going to say that it is okay to get on the mic or get into the team text chat and start bad-mouthing your teammates, bad-mouthing the enemy team, you know, for any particular reason, because you're winning or because you're losing, or for any reason whatsoever. That's just not okay. So, you know, definitely don't do that. That's unacceptable. However, I know for a fact that there are people in this community who are using the definition of tryhard correctly, as in people who are just trying their best to win the game, but still mean it in a malicious way, as though doing so is somehow a bad thing. I have never played another game in my entire life in which actually just doing your best to try and win that game was considered a bad thing. Go ahead and I dare you walk up to somebody who's playing Street Fighter, who's playing Halo, who's playing basically any other game on the planet, and tell them, hey bro, I think you're trying a little too hard to win. Why don't you tone it back a little bit? Like I said before, this doesn't count for people who are just toxic players. So if somebody is, of course, being extremely aggressive and they're yelling over the microphone or something like that, that person might actually want to tone it down, because they have reached well beyond just being a tryhard to the point where they are now being toxic to their own team and probably the other team as well. It's at this exact point that I feel like the balance between a casual and competitive game really get blurred for some people with Team Fortress 2. You don't need to be a competitive player in Team Fortress 2 to believe that the main goal of Team Fortress 2 is to defeat the other team at whatever given goal you are playing at the current time. This is how all video games are played, and I think all video games should be played. However, with Team Fortress 2, there is a portion of the community, and I'd say a rather vocal portion of the community, that believes that playing Team Fortress 2 means to basically not play the game, to just dance and conga, and to take everything as lightheartedly and non-seriously as possible. And to an extent, they're right. There is a place for those types of actions, for that type of behavior, because Team Fortress 2 is a bit of a wacky game. All the different taunts and different ways you can go about playing the game definitely lend itself a bit more to a kind of casual playstyle. This doesn't mean, however, that the advanced and complicated mechanics of Team Fortress 2 are there to be ignored. In my personal opinion, you should always be looking to improve yourself in terms of the gameplay for the game. I think there's so much to learn and do within Team Fortress 2 that to spend it doing anything else but playing the game as an objective-based game is a bit of a waste of time. So what does this mean for Team Fortress 2? Is it a more competitive or more casual game? Well, I'm afraid the answer isn't quite that simple. TF2 was way ahead of its time. It created a community-based game that we can all kind of get behind and build together well before such kind of a concept really existed. And I know that there are going to be those who argue with me and say, you know, oh, Quake or the original Team Fortress and all these other games, you know, World of Warcraft all had their own little communities based around them also. And this is also true. But the main survivability of Team Fortress 2 is its strong community that has persisted until this day. The game wasn't built with a competitive matchmaking mode in mind. The game wasn't made with the idea that eventually someone would be paid serious money to play this game professionally. But it does exist now. There are people out there who get paid serious money to play video games professionally, either for other people's entertainment or just because they're really damn good at the game. And as times change, so does TF2. A long time ago, Team Fortress 2 really was mostly about just conging around and, you know, taunting with the enemy and constantly just kind of joking around and having a bit of fun. But there were always people from the very beginning who were trying their best to learn Team Fortress 2's mechanics and to master them before anybody else. Now, there is and always will be room for both methodologies within Team Fortress 2. However, I do feel like Team Fortress 2 is moving in a bit more of a competitive beeline than it is towards the casual end of things. Now, will this inherently hurt the people who generally like the more casual aspects of the game? Maybe, but I'm inclined to think not. As Team Fortress 2 moves a bit more towards the competitive stratosphere than it ever has been, the game and its weapons and the various playstyles within it will become a lot more balanced, and there will be a bit more of a meta shaping as to how to win each type of game mode. Now, as it stands right now, there really isn't a clear-cut best way to win any particular game mode in Team Fortress 2, except for certain game modes play with a certain amount of players with certain classes on certain maps. But as the game becomes infinitely more complicated and infinitely more balanced, we will actually see a rise of, you know, the type of casual player that is hoping to one day become a competitive player. This is the type of attitude we see with games like Overwatch, League of Legends, Dota, Counter-Strike, all of these other games already, where we have a bit of a community base that plays the game relatively casually. However, you can still take the game relatively seriously for what it is and improve your skills over time. This will lead to Team Fortress 2 being infinitely more interesting and fun to play, as more players who are joining it are doing so for the idea of them improving at the game over time and potentially participating in the competitive scene. Games will become more balanced as a result, as more players are watching YouTube videos and instructional videos as to how to get better at the game, as well as putting more time into just honing their skills. This doesn't mean that we'll see the complete elimination of really bad players who are unwilling to learn anything else about the game, but I do feel like we'll see that a whole lot less if Team Fortress 2 does move in a bit more of a competitive direction. Again, I don't feel like this is going to make the casual side of Team Fortress 2 go away anytime soon. We have lots of game modes out there like ×10 and Randomizer that are plenty goofy and that lots of people like to enjoy and play. And even in casual game modes, I see lots of people going all kinds of joke classes or using really crappy loadouts on purpose because they just really want to see what they can do with those particular loadouts and just kind of meme around with them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, however, is not the time to be resistant to change. We definitely need to be on the side of the Team Fortress 2 devs in trying to move this game in a bit more of a competitive direction overall to help maintain this game's relevance. It's going to be a long and hard struggle, but I do feel like eventually one day we will find the correct balance between the casual game and the casual players, as well as the competitive game with all of its competitive players. Try to trust in the devs, my friends. It's really all we can do. Not to mention, I feel like most people who actually call people tryhards just do so to make it sound like they weren't actually trying, and so the kill that the other person got was invalid because they weren't actually using all of their skill, but I digress. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments section what you think. Do you think that Team Fortress 2 is a bit more of a competitive game or a bit more of a casual game? Or maybe you feel like we could find some sort of happy medium in between. I have received a singular donation since my last video. Thank you so much, Jebu. I really appreciate it. A big shout out to my Patreon supporters, a full list of whom will be available in just a moment on screen. Definitely thanks to you guys. I was able to help make rent these last few months, so I really appreciate it. If you'd like to support me on Patreon, I have a link down in the description, so please go check that out if you feel like helping me support my channel and just helping me continue to put out content. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much for watching, and with that, let's get the internet classy. I'll see you then. Hello, my name is Sir Stanger. Hello, my name is Sir Stanger. Hello, my name is Sir Stanger. Hello,
can I have the attention of the internet?
My name
for
is
1 second.
My name is Sir Stanger.